Welcome to this small series on how to implement your own physics system using Godot engine. The reason I'm doing this is because I started messing with Godot and I found out that the built-in physics system is like a black box to me. I'm not sure what's happening at any moment, and I wanted something more, I could say, simpler for the game I'm designing. And I came across an article by Matt Thorson, the creator of Celeste, and he explained how they implemented their own physics system. And the first concept they used is that the positioning and movement in the game are all done in integer numbers. And the second idea is that every collider in the game is an axis-aligned bounding box. This makes things like collision detection much simpler. It's the first time I'm ever doing a YouTube series, so sorry and forgive me if it's not perfect. I still hope you're going to enjoy it nonetheless. And enough talking, let's go. Okay, so to start things off, we need some scenes. So first I'm going to create a 2D scene. I'm going to rename it to level. And then I want to add a new scene, but before that I'm going to save this to a new folder here. I will call it scenes and save. And I'm going to create a new one, and this one is going to be the player. Usually when you use the built-in physics system, you're going to use the kinematic body, but because I'm not using the built-in system, we're going to use our own custom system. We're gonna just select a node 2D, and I'm going to rename the node 2D to player, and then I'm gonna save this one as well. So another scene we're going to use is a wall, because we need something to collide with. So it's also going to be a node 2D, and I'm going to rename this one a wall. Save it. Okay, so let's start off with the player. Okay, now we're gonna need some sprites. I added a link to the sprites I'm using. They are free to use. And now I'm gonna copy them into the project. And as I'm copying, one thing to note here is after it's done importing, just make sure that your sprites looks like mine, which is pixelated because it's a pixel art. If they are not like this, one thing to do is to select all your sprites and then click filter off and do re-import, and that should fix your issue. Okay, so now I'm going to delete this. So now we're going to add a new node. It's going to be animated sprite. And we need to add frames, so click on that, on frames in the inspector, and do new sprite frames, and click again. And we don't need the default one, the default state. We can delete this, and we're going to add a new one, and you can rename this to idle. Now we're going to add the frames for idle. I'm going to go into sprites, individual sprites, and I'm going to search for the idle sprites. Where are they? Idle, there we go. And mark 00, idle 01. Make sure not select the idle 2, and take idle 02 and idle 03, so 4 frames. Open, and these are the frames for the idle states. You can see how it looks by clicking the playing. And you see now it's moving, and you can change the speed if you want. Also, you can put 10 FPS, and now it's going faster, as you can see. I'm gonna just leave it at 5 FPS. And we do want loop because it's the idle. We're not moving, so I do want looping. And now we're gonna start writing the code to move the player. But first of all, I want to add the player to the level scene, so I'm just gonna link it, and I'm gonna select the player. Now is in our scene. I'm gonna place him here for now, and I'm gonna go back to the player and add a script. And I want to add the scripts not to the scenes folder but to the scripts folder, so I'm just gonna create a new folder which is scripts, open, create. Okay, so I'm gonna delete all this, and the first function we're gonna use is the process function. So I'm gonna use func process. By now you should know what the process function do. If you don't know anything, you can just control click and you will get to the help files and you can read what it does. Okay, so we're gonna start off with the movement, basic movement on the x-axis, and for that we need a few variables. The first one is the velocity, which will hold the speed of the player, the current speed, and it's a vector too. And then we need the max run, which is the maximum run speed, and I'm gonna set it to 100. And then we need the run acceleration. Just do run accel equals 800. And now, so how do we start moving the character? First of all, we need to get the inputs, right? So I'm gonna do var direction equals input dot get action strength, which is a value between 0 and 1, and we want to get UI right minus get action strength UI left. Now this will return a number that can be a fraction, so we don't necessarily want that because we want in this game to move either left or right. We don't have the slow moving speed or something like that, so we need to add a sign here. And what sign do is if the number is equal to if the number is positive, then it will be 1. If the number is negative, it will be -1, and if the number is 0, it will stay 0. So you can read about it here. Okay, so now we need to move the character, and how we're gonna do that? We're gonna change the velocity. Velocity.x equals, there is a function named move toward. It takes 3 parameters. The first one is the from value, so it's velocity x, our current value, and we want to change it to what? To max run, but not just max run, we need to take account of the direction, right? So we multiply by the direction. So if the direction is 0, we're not going to move, right? We are going to move towards 0, which is good. And if the direction is right, we are going to move in -100. Okay, so next, the third value is by how much, by what is the delta. So the delta here is run accel, but there is a catch here. If we move it by run accel, it's a very big value, it's 800, so the change will be so fast. We need to multiply it by delta, so it happens each frame a little bit, right? So we're gonna multiply it by delta. So now it's gonna be smoothed out from velocity x to max run multiplied by direction. Next, we need to move the character, right? So now we only change the velocity, so to move it, we need to change the global position .x and add velocity.x. But then again, if we do it like that, we were going to add each frame 100 units. It's too fast, so we need to moderate this again with delta. Okay, so now we're gonna check this. I'm gonna press F5, and okay, if you press F5 and you didn't select the scene yet, make sure you select your first scene to be the level and click OK, and then it should work for you. And now you can see when I'm hitting the the right and left arrows, I'm moving. But there's a small issue here because my character is always facing right, which is wrong. So to fix it, close the game. And now we're gonna add a simple if statement. But actually before that, I want to add a reference to the animated sprite so we can flip it. So we're gonna use onReadyVal, animated sprite, we call it, equals $, and it lets you select the component, so animated sprite, it's this one. Now we're gonna do the if statement. If the direction is greater than 0, so we are moving to the right, we want to do animated sprite dot flip h equals to false. But if direction is smaller than 0, then we want to do animated sprite, yeah, got the colon here, animated sprite dot flip h equals to true. So now if we run it, as we're working towards the right, it's good, and now the left, awesome. Okay, one last thing on this video that I want to add is that while moving, I want to change to a running sprite. So let's first add the sprite. We're gonna go to the player scene, animated sprite, and we're gonna add a new animation, rename it, run. Click this folder, add texture, and we're gonna select all the running frames from 00 to 05, open, and it's a bit slow, so change it to 10. Okay, now we're gonna save and go back to the script, and now let's do a new if. I know it's almost like this one, but I want to separate stuff. So on the new if, let's say if direction is not 0, we want to change the animation. So you do animated sprite play, and you give the name we want to run, else direction, animated sprite play idle. Save it, hit F5 to run the game, and now you can see that we are on the idle when we are not moving, and when we start to move, we are on the run animation. Great, so that's it for this video. I hope you learned something. If you liked it, please hit the like button. I'll be seeing you on the next one.